I've been rethinking how I approach miniature painting, and today I'll take you through the process of developing a new colour palette and painting style. And this is one that's going to make my new faction for Moonstone, the Shades of Moonreach, really stand out. In this video, I'll show you how I choose colours using the colour wheel and why I'm switching to a limited palette, and also how I'm mixing my own shadows and highlights using techniques I've learned from watercolour painting. This video is part of the Moonstone Monday series, and I'm going to be setting up the colour scheme, mixing some test colours, and then preparing grey mare ready for painting. Then, in the next video, which will be a bonus one this week, I'll take you through the full painting process of this awesome miniature, step by step. In the last video I made for the Moonstone Monday series, I painted Jada, but now I'm looking for a more minimal paint selection for this new Shades of Moonreach faction. So I want it to be a little bit different to Jada and the Fawns, and also some of the other models I've painted. And this new method is also going to be a great way to use fewer paints to get some natural highlights and shadows. Okay, let's jump in and start by choosing a colour scheme for Grey Mare. For this new faction, the Shades of Moonreach, I'm going to be using some limited paints, and I'm going to stick with the paints I've got by the Too Thin Coats range, and I've also got this colour wheel, which is a fantastic reference to use when choosing the colours you're going to use for your miniatures. Blue is going to be a dominant colour for Grey Mare, so I'm going to use the colour wheel to help me decide which colours to use and which colours will complement that blue. So in this section we're going to work through a little bit of colour theory using a colour wheel. And here's Grey Mare, the model, ready to get painted up. This is him primed. We'll talk about that later on, but first we're going to jump in and just discuss how to choose those colours. Here's a great illustration of Grey Mare, and you can see that there's lots of blue dominating on the banner, also his cloak. I'm also seeing some blue in that grey for his head, ears and hands. Now I've got that main colour, I can start developing colour schemes based off that. You can go in different directions. One is to choose complementary colours either side of the main colour on the colour wheel. So you could go for turquoises, darker purpley blues. Another option is to take that colour and go straight across the colour wheel to the opposite colour, and those two are going to complement each other. Alternatively, you can go for a Y shape, so go straight along, and instead of using the opposite colour, you choose two colours, one from each side of it. You can take your main colour, choose one colour from the side, and then go opposite to both of those colours. This could be an option for Grey Mare, but I could also go take that main blue and then select colours on the colour wheel to form a square. So you can see here, there's almost two steps between each colour. There's one other option we can do with our colour wheel, and looking closely at Grey Mare here, you can see lots of greys, lots of blues, so definitely want to start with the blue, and then we're going to venture out with two other main colours. And we're going to go for this triangle here. We're going to go with reds and reddy browns, and then also yellow colours and golds, and this is going to form a triangle on the colour wheel. You can find loads of colour wheels on Google, so just grab one that you like, download it, and you're good to go. This one from Too Thin Coats uses 8 colours. I prefer a few more than that, so I chose to have 12 on the one I used in the previous example. Now that we have our colour scheme, I want to keep things simple by using a limited palette. Instead of having separate base, mid-tone and highlight paints for each section of the model, I'll be mixing my own using just a handful of colours. And here you can see I've got the Too Thin Coat paints. And with just a few colours, plus white and the complementary colours for shadows, I'm going to be able to create a full range of tones without needing dozens of different paints. I think this will be a fun challenge, but it's also going to save lots of space and lots of money too. Now let's move on to mixing the colours, and here you can see I've got the Army Painter wet palette, and I'm using the Army Painter Wargamer Regiment brush. Let's do an example of how we can take one of the Too Thin Coats paint and then mix that nice blue in the different tones ready for Grey Mare. And I'll also show you how we can affect the mood of the colour in the model from going for a smoky or a warm shadow to something a little bit more darker and greyer, and that's going to really fit in with the Shades of Moonreach faction for the Moonstone game. Here we've got this nice dark blue, and so that's going to form the base colour. We don't need to go any darker than that. So I'll mix some white into that to create a mid-tone, and then I'll take some of that mid-tone, add more white, and that's going to be our highlight. Now, in theory, that's all we would need for any of the blue areas. So if I wanted to do the banner, I'll use these 3 blue tones, starting from dark, layering up to light, and that's going to give us a real nice traditional look to the miniature. We may want to go a little bit brighter as we work through, so I may go for one final highlight, but I won't make that decision until I see what the paints look like on the model. Let's have a look at another option now. So if we pretend that we're not going to use that real dark blue as our base colour, but instead we want to start with the mid-tone and then create more of a smoky, warmer shadow. So we want something that's going to look like a shadow on the model, be a little bit darker. And what we would do is look to the colour wheel again, and we'll choose the opposite colour on the wheel. So for this mid blue, I'm going to go opposite on the colour wheel to orange, and I've just made up an orange with that yellow and red. And I'll take some of that orange, and then I'll take a good amount of the blue, and then I'll mix those together, and this is going to make a real warm shadow. So you can see there, we've changed it quite a lot. It really looks like a nice, almost duck egg blue, but it's definitely darker, and it looks more shadowy and smoky. So that's going to give us a very different look to the look here of going with this dark blue as the base. Let's do another colour, and then I'll show you what it looks like using black instead of the complementary colour or the opposite colour on the wheel. So we'll use yellow now for this example, and then I'm going to get some yellow from straight out the bottle, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of purple, and that's going to give us a real nice deep dark shade to use as our base colour. You may have seen a similar technique to this when I did previous videos airbrushing. When I airbrushed yellow, I did it over a pink base, and you get the same effect. So you can see now we want to get this nice gold colour for grey mare, and you can build up the different tones using yellow with a little bit of purple, and then adding more yellow to that mix, getting brighter and brighter until you get to the original yellow. If you want a brighter yellow, you can take some white, mix in a bit of the yellow, and that's going to be even brighter still. So I'm going to stick with the 3 different tones, base, mid-tone and highlight, and perhaps a further highlight if the model needs it. But if you really wanted to take your time and go more detailed, this is how you would get that nice smooth transition from shadow to highlight. And you can see here, as I even these colours and mix them along, you can see there's a nice progression there. And it seems weird to add purple to yellow to get this effect, but once it's on a model, I think it's going to look great. And this is the technique I learnt from watercolour painting. Now let's have a look at the difference when we add black. And this is going to work nicely for the blue, but I find it doesn't work for every colour. So let's grab some of that mid-tone blue and then add some black. And look at this, we've got a totally different effect. It certainly is a bit darker, and I think this is going to work nicely for some of the different grey blues that we're looking for. So using those 2 techniques, we're going to get a warmer shadow and a more grey shadow that's going to really show us the difference between different parts of the model, from the cloak to the banner and to Grey Mare's head. But what happens if we add black to yellow? This one I'm not so happy with. This isn't the way I would want to go with it, and when we compare the 2 effects, you can see this looks quite green, and I don't really like that look. Certainly for Grey Mare, for the effect I'm going, there's not going to be a lot of gold on the model, but having that purple in there, I think is going to take it in a nice direction, and that's going to really look good for the gold colour, the gold trim going around the cloak and different parts of the model. Here now I've laid out my main colours ready to get painting. I've got that blue with the 3 main tones plus an extra highlight if we need it. I've took some red and a reddy brown, making that nice colour to use for the leather parts of the model, and then with the yellow I'm going to go through with the 3 main colours too. It's almost time to get painting, but there's a couple of steps that we want to do in the preparation. And here you can see I've got Grey Mare, and I primed him with this surface primer. You'd normally airbrush this on, but I did it with a brush and just painted it by hand. I've done a video on that if you'd like to check it out. And I'm going to be trying this out on some of the other models, a brush-on primer designed specifically for that purpose. Before I start adding these different layers though, I'm going to take some of the Death Black paint and really water it down, almost 2 parts water to 1 part paint, and I'm going to give 2 coats on this. I'll do a coat first, let it dry completely, then add 1 further coat. This is definitely in keeping with the brand name, And then here I'm going to take the white star once that black is completely dry, and I'm going to dry brush it on. I can use a big dry brush like this one. This is an Army Painter one. Again, nice big bristles. This is designed for your vehicle and terrain, and I often use these very vegan makeup brushes. Nice soft bristles, perfect for dry brushing these miniatures. Here we have CYCLAIRE completely dry now, nice solid black to work off, and we could start layering the paint straight onto this, but I want to do a bit of dry brushing first. You may have seen this effect before. It's called a zenithal highlight or pre-shade, and to keep it simple, I'm going to go with a quick top-down dry brush to catch all the highest points of the model that would get the biggest highlights. And I'm just using some paint right from the bottle top here, wiping it into the bristles on some kitchen towel, using my hand to test it. I want this to be quite subtle, don't want too much paint coming off here. And then I'm going to go all over the model from the top down, gently at first, just picking out the raised areas. And this is really going to bring the miniature to life. You're going to start to define all those details before the main painting starts. It's also a great guide and highlights where you're going to place all the different colours, and also add some subtle brightness underneath those layers. It's going to help to make the colours more vibrant later on. I love this part of the process. It's awesome to see all the details coming through the miniatures, especially when the quality of the sculpts are as good as CYCLAIRE here from Moonstone. And even though you're not going to see this white, and it won't be fully visible in the final model, it subtly affects the way the layers of paint are going to sit on the surface. And that's going to add a bit of extra depth to both the shadows and the highlights, because we're going to keep a lot of that black, and then that white is a massive contrast to the black in the shadows. I'll keep going with this step so you can see the whole process and just how many times I'm going over it with the dry brush. This should give you a good idea of just how much you can put on there. And then once this model is primed and we've done the zenithal pre-shading, we're going to be all set for the second part of this painting process. And I'm going to do a separate video for that and take you step by step through this model. It's one of my favourite miniatures from Moonstone, one of my favourite miniatures from any game for a long time. And so I've been really looking forward to getting this painted. And that's why I thought I'd do this extra bonus video. I also thought it would be fun to cover how I choose the colours. I haven't done that before in depth in any of the videos I've made in the past, so I thought it would be fun to really take a close look at that colour wheel, look at the different options, and just go through the process that I'm using now for this new Shades of Moonreach faction. And there we go, there's CYCLAIRE ready to go. I recommend holding it up to some natural light so you can really see the details pop out, and if you've missed anything as well. CYCLAIRE came in the new starter set for Moonreach, and this is called the Life and Death Struggle. There's some fantastic miniatures in there. Last week on Moonstone Monday, I painted Jada. She's one of the fawns, and I've gone for an autumn theme there with the basing and tried to complement that with the colours on the model, and especially with her hair. And in the past, I've done some of the others, like for the Commonwealth, and you can see here, I've gone for a different technique where I've done lots of brush strokes to try and sell the shape and the curves of all the different parts. But here, I did a combo of both contrast and layering. And I was really happy how Drunk Fritz's clothes came out using the blue and red contrast paints, as you can see here, over a Zenithal Prime. Real nice effect. And here's one of my favourites, Dim and Dimmer. I had such a great time painting this in a similar layering effect. But with the Shades of Moonreach, I want something a bit different. I want it really to stand out on the tabletop. Here's another miniature I did only with pretty much contrast paints and a bit of metallic paint, and this was great, tabletop ready, really happy. But for this whole Shades faction, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. We've got loads of models to do, and so I wanted to come up with this new process of using these simpler colours to produce more depth, more detail to the models, and really complement just the fun and the chaos that's going on with this new faction. I love it. It's a great addition to the game, and there's so many to go through. We've got 6 boxes here, and we've also got the miniatures that you would have seen if you've watched the unboxing video. But I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got any questions on choosing colours or the colour wheel, please let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to answer them if I can. If you'd like to find out more about Moonstone, I've put a link in the comments and also in the description below. And there's loads of videos on my channel for Moonstone, from how to play to painting, demo games, and much more. There are definitely some benefits of using all the different colours that you can buy and getting the base mid-tone and highlights, especially if you're doing a large number of models and you want those colours to be consistent across an army. But for games like Moonstone, I think this more individual approach is really fun, and it definitely is worth spending that time to make these models stand out, because there's such fantastic sculpts and a really nice set of models to have in any collection. But thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, it'd be great if you hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I look forward to seeing you here next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games.